Hey everyone, today I'm going to be replacing the throttle actuator on a BMW E46 M3 S54 engine, which is located under the intake manifold. I've seen some videos about repairing the throttle motor itself. I'm going to go ahead and just replace it. I'm not going to take it apart. I want to just make sure everything's right. And I did not see a lot of videos on the steps needed to actually replace or get to the actuator for this particular engine, so hopefully you'll find this video helpful. Alright, I just had the hood come down on my shoulder because the hood shocks are weak. If the hood shocks are ever weak on a car, you can use, I have a special tool at work that does the same thing. Take a pair of vice grips and lock it gently on the struts for the hood on both sides, and that locks it into place so that you can actually put your hood light on if you have one. So first step I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off here. I have to take the microfilter housing off. I have to take this crossbar off. I'm going to want to take the intake off here, the air filter box, and then I'll have access to the intake. Alright, I'm going to take, instead of, you can actually lift this whole plastic up and separate it, but it can be brittle on an older car, so I'm just going to take a pick, and I'm actually going to take this off just by taking this cover off here, pull the harness out of the way. I'm going to leave this in place. Have to take the microfilter off. Alright, this just actually pulls out, this comes out, and I have some Torxes in here that I have to take off. And those are T30s. That's my quarter. I need this one. And I like to just use a long extension. And just zip these off here. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 to take off. Now they are captured, so you don't have to take them all the way out. Once they're loose, should be able to wiggle this free, and this is going to come off as all one piece. This up here, there's a little hook, and move that out of your way. Next, with a 13mm, I'm going to take the crossbar off. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 to take off. Once those 4 nuts are removed, just take that out of the way. Next, we're going to take the air duct off, and I usually like to use just a pair of dikes to just grab and lift to take these off, like so. It actually works better than a lot of tools out there. Hook it, lift it, and pop this off. So we can take this piece off here. So to be safe, you should disconnect the battery, which I'm back here in the trunk. You have these twist tabs here, and this cover just slides over. Put that down, put these down, and just disconnect your negative cable and leave your trunk open. I'm inside my garage, so don't have to worry about rain. If you're worried about forgetting, you can go ahead and latch this so that if you can't shut it, but definitely disconnect the battery. You know, 1, you don't want to short anything when you're working, and 2, this particular vehicle is SMG. I don't want the SMG pump to turn on because I opened the door and spray fluid everywhere, because the little reservoir is actually up here on top. Alright, let's take the cover off here. Let me get a screwdriver for that. Just going to pop these off here, free up this top cover. It just slides in over here on the side. That's going to pop off, and I'm going to go ahead and take it off here at this clamp. Okay, you can use a screwdriver, or I have a Hazit special tool that actually is a flexible driver. I believe it's a 6mm if you want to go that route. To pop that off, have to disconnect your mass airflow sensor. Don't forget to put this back on. Squeeze it, pop it. I need both hands. Okay, put that aside. Pop this off. Okay, we're on our way. Alright, I'm going to take this seal off here. It just peels right off. Put that aside because I just want to be able to move this stuff here out of the way. There's like a little grommet that sits in there. This is one of the hoses that does have to come off. There's a squeeze hose right here. Make sure you can see that. So hopefully it's not brittle. Squeeze both ends, hopefully pop it off, and you can just move that out of the way. You could take it off completely, but I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to take the rest of this boot off here, so I'm just going to use the same tool. Again, I think it's a 6mm, or you can use just a screwdriver for this big odd shaped clamp. Don't lose that. That would be a specialty tool. You're not going to make a clamp that fits like on here like this. I want to move this out of the way. There is a gasket here too, so don't lose the gasket. Okay, just put that back in there. Alright, you do have to take the holder for the dipstick tube off. So this is this shiny chrome right there to move this out of the way. There's like a rubber grommet that it floats on, so we just have to make sure that's pulled off of that. So when we pull the intake off, it's not going to get caught on it. Put that aside. So there's your jump terminal wire that runs here, and it actually attaches to the intake right here. There's a piece of plastic right there. That's like a slider. So you slide it up like so, and it unlocks from the intake manifold right there. There's like a slider hook. So that has to be free. It goes on like that, locks back in when we're done. So that's another piece that you need to be able to get the intake manifold off. So I think I want to take this piece off here, which should be pretty easy to give me some more room. This is the one with the SMG, and this hose, I know it's broken on me before, so I just want to be able to get in there and see what's going on with that. So to do that, I will need to disconnect this electrical connector here for this solenoid. I might as well disconnect the brake fluid, move that out of the way. Right, this is just a vacuum line here going to the brake booster. Most of the time you can pop this free. If it's super tight, you hear it sucking air. You need to bleed the pressure out. If you step on the brake pedal a bunch of times, you can actually release the pressure and pop that off easier. I might actually leave that connected there. So to get this off, there's these twist clips. Twist, and then there's like a spring behind it. Let me get this one with both hands. Oh no, I got it. Okay. And then I gotta move this out of the way, and I should be able to feed that out. Pop this line off here. That should give me enough room, I think, with both hands to get that out. Well, it's catching on this lip right here, so I'm gonna take this off too. It's the same T30, one there and one right there, and this will pop out. Okay, those are loose. This is if we're going to install an alarm. We used to have to take these apart because the alarm would get, oh no, that's the wiper motor there. I remember installing alarms in E46s, and that's where we put the siren, if I remember correctly. Alright, and hopefully that's going to give me enough room to sneak this out. Yeah, let me just get over by the camera. So I did take out this one plastic 10mm right here, which goes to the harness right here, which just frees it up so that you can sneak this out through that corner, and that's going to open up that section for me. So with that out, it gives me a lot more room and visibility. Here's that hose I don't want to break that goes to the reservoir right here. This is that line. There's another line back here that's attached to the intake back here that has to get removed. That's a wiring harness right there that goes in between these two pegs back here, or else you won't be able to take it out. Okay, move that out of the way. That's all clear. Alright, now this is important. I want to explain the SMG release so you don't break this. Right up under here is a plastic like spinning piece that rotates. That slides up, which releases the bottom one. That's the lock for this lower piece. Once that's released, then you can gently wiggle this free down here and it'll pop down. Of course I'm covering my leg, but okay, so there's a spinny piece on top which pushes up to release it, and then very gently wiggle this down and then it's released. And this should come free from the reservoir tank, so you don't break this down here. Very brittle line. Alright, I'm going to throw a rag on that and turn my light off, and I'm going to call it a night and continue in the morning. Alright, I'm going to continue with the intake manifold removal. I'm going to take this vent line right here, you squeeze both sides and work this one free. To prevent it from breaking, if you pop it off on the other side too, then you can move it so that it's more out of the way, so you don't catch it when you're taking the intake manifold off. Let's see, I think this one can stay. You do have to take the solenoid down here. It's got a little holder sitting, of course it's right in my way, sitting on the intake down here. This is going to just slide over. So under the intake manifold you have this drain back tube that you have to pop off, which is down here. Try to pan out so you can see it's all the way down there. Then you also have a connection right over here that has that same press tab, and that's on the bottom of the intake manifold. You have to take both of those off as well. So this bottom connection here, that's the drain back, was the hardest. Had to go with the left hand leaning over so I could put pressure on it, pushing it backwards. And that's going to take a little bit of time and finesse to get. Eventually I did get it. Now I have, I think they're 10 millimeters. There's two nuts under the intake that hold onto a bracket like this that support the intake. I have to loosen these, and I'm going to take the nut off. That way it can come straight up. Alright, I have both those 10s off there, and the next step is to take the specialty clamps off. And see there, they have like just a slide lock, and I'm going to be using a Matco tool PHC10. It has these teeth on it where you can catch the bottom and the top. Of course I'm doing it with one hand. Bottom and top. And to release it, you just put a little bit of pressure. And you hear that pop? That popped it free. Now putting it back on, you can replace the clamps. And you do the same thing, catch the bottom and the top, and you squeeze it till it catches on this first notch right here. So you have to do that to all of these. And take this off so you can access, this is just another press clamp. You can access these. This one has the bar here, so hopefully I can get in there with this tool for the back ones. Alright, looking at this and planning ahead, they didn't say anything in the repair instructions, but with the tool that I have, because I don't have the $170 BMW tool, I don't think I'm going to be able to get to the clamps for the back intake. So I'm going to take this pipe off here, which has a 10 millimeter here, and one also here. I think that's the only two. There's a vacuum line back here that just slides off on the back, and there's a harness attached to this metal reel here, but I'm hoping that I can just move that out of the way. Let's see how that goes. Alright, so with this 10 out and this 10 out, you will need a swivel to get to this one, and just a little bit of finesse and wiggling it back and forth. These are like tubes, and they do float in here, and they're just held on by this little gasket. So I'm gonna put a little bit of soapy water on that when I go back together. But this whole section now moves out of the way, and you now have access to all of the clamps. And I really think this is going to be a big deal in accessing this and doing this job right. If you have this style, I don't know, maybe all don't have this style, or with the BMW tool you can get in there easier. But I mean, 210s and then wiggle it free and this whole piece moves back out of your way. I really think that's worth the effort. Now I took a tool and just went and broke the tension free on all the rubber mounts all the way down, and then if you wiggle you can pop the intake back. So at this point I just have to move everything so it's out of the way and finagle this in out without catching anything. Alright, here's it partially pulled back, and there's that vent tube right there. Sorry, too much coffee this morning. So you have to be on this side, and I just pushed it back because there's an accumulator underneath. You have to go up and around the back. So you have to guide that out. It can get caught. If it gets caught, you can break it. Okay? So make sure to bring it up nice and slow. Same thing going in. We gotta be careful not to break it, and we have to feed it down and forward. That goes to that little pipe for the oil drain back. Okay, there it is. So here's that small plastic, very breakable oil drain back you have to watch out for right there. Alright, now we have access to the throttle bodies. Make sure you get your clamps out of the way. I left 2 on there. Make sure you have all 6 because they like to fall down behind here. I mean, this is how you'd have to, this is what you'd have to do to get to your idle air control. There it looks like a temperature sensor here. This is the throttle actuator we're going to be replacing and the rod attached to it. Hey, here's the starter, so if you have to replace the starter, you're going to have to take this off. So here's that bracket that holds the intake manifold here. Right here's our air inlet for the idle air valve. And this has SMG, so I have this little reservoir off of here that goes for the SMG system. So we're going to be replacing the throttle actuator, and hopefully this rod will come off nice and easy. I've had this break too. Everything gets brittle. The new actuator comes with a new sensor, and we're going to replace the front sensor here, which should be nice and easy at this point. And then of course the challenge is going back in. I have to feed that stupid little line here. So it goes underneath this bracket, under the accumulator, to this metal pipe right here. You know, now you can see it really well. This is the tube that goes down. So that's it. We're open. I'll just pan here in case you're wondering where things are, so you can see, and I'll get started on getting that rod off and getting the new throttle actuator installed. Alright, here's the rod. Using a pry tool, just gently finagle this off. Right. Gonna leave the rod there. Just let it float, and then we have to take off top one first, and then this one should stay in the housing. We should be able to walk that out and then go back in the same way. It's really tight right here in the harness. We have a plug here, just has a press tab to release. We also have a plug here, and there's also a press tab on the back. Alright, that bottom tend's a little difficult to get on, so with a pry bar in the right spot on the hard part of the plastic housing, I just gently persuaded the wiring harness to move a little bit so I could get that in there. And once you get it started, this is why you want to disconnect the battery, because you have a power feed right here. And I'm just going to leave that 10 in there once it's freed up. Yep, and it's free, ready to come out. Just as a quick note, there are locator pins on the top and bottom, so when you put your new actuator in, I would not have the bolt on it. I would line it up on the dowels first, and then again persuade the harness to move gently out of the way. Alright, going back on, I started both top, and then I used a magnet to slide in the bottom, and then tighten that one up first, and then snugged up the other two. So now you just have to make sure your throttle rod is clipped on correctly, and the next two steps, going backwards, is hooking up this connector and this connector right here. Now my faults for this vehicle were for the throttle and the position, so I'm going to be replacing this sensor as well as the one that came with the actuator. And this is just a Phillips head screw. You just need to use the right tool to get in there to pop this off and snug that up. It just has a press tab right there. Alright, with all that done, got to go back together now. Got to watch out for this small piece here. And remember, I'm not going to put the clamps on now because I know they're just going to fall. So I'm just going to very carefully, and just want to mention these rubber pieces here. Let's see, no, like upside down in the camera here. Right here, they are replaceable. If they do break, you can get new ones. These look to be in pretty good shape, so I'm going to leave them. They just untwist from the intake, and you can put new ones on. Alright, so I'm going to just gently lay this in here again. Need that over there. The hardest part, which you're not going to be able to see, is getting that tube in the right spot. There we go. Alright, to get that tube in, if you put one hand here and one hand here, you can wiggle this back. You can actually get your arm in there and finagle. It's got to go, your accumulator's here, it has to go under the accumulator, and now it's sticking out right on the bottom, so I'm good to go. Now I'm resting the clamps on the boot. Just make sure, alright, here's the locking portion here, and then here's an open part here that you squeeze it. This has to go towards the front of the car. And I'm just setting them all up. They should stay once they're on. Just didn't want anything to fall off when I was putting the intake on. So I'm just going to rest them in place. Like so. And they do rotate, so if they move on you, you can just rotate them back over. And now to pop the intake on. Hopefully my trick works, but a little bit of soapy water, dish soap, in a spray bottle, which, you know, a little bit of moisture isn't going to hurt anything. Put that on like that, and I'm hoping that the gaskets will go on easier. Yeah, there she goes with a little bit of soapy water. Look at that, intake's back on. So that's a neat little trick. Just a little bit of dish soap with water. I like to use it for all the connections. It's just easier, and it's safer than using lithium a lot of times because you can damage your seals. Alright, let me show you how to put these clamps on. I'm going to do it on this one right here with this particular tool, which has these spinny teeth. And like I said, this is a Matco PHC10. It says for springs and band clamps. You're going to want to support the center with your finger and hook the bottom catch and the very top catch, and you want to bring the clamp up so it catches on the next one up. So not the one on the end, but the second one back. But if you don't support the center with your thumb, with this tool, it just pops off. So you catch the bottom with one of the teeth, you catch the top, slide it up with a little bit of pressure. Didn't get that one yet. If you let it go, the spring can unravel on you, so try to keep pressure on it. Come on. Alright, this one doesn't want to go. Keep trying. Some of these were hard. I got the first one. I still have this one to do. I got the last three. This one just doesn't quite want to catch. Might have to go a little bit tighter on the tool. Let's try that. Got it. Right, and once it's locked, you can't spin them. Alright, now I'm going to struggle with that one. Alright, I'm not going to put you through the torture of me trying to do it. That's how it's done. Alright, that should be the hard part. Everything else is putting things back where they were and making sure that everything is plugged back in. I'm going to put this drain back tube back on. I'm going to just spray that with some light soapy water again, position it and push that down. Alright, so position that. I tapped it with my hand once it was all lined up. You know you're in when your thread holes line up. So, I mean, you can start plugging stuff in as you go. Clip that on. I'm going to put the two 10mm screws in here and here next. Alright, that was pretty simple. Remember, you need the swivel for this one to go under the rail right here to get to that one. Remember, we disconnected this vacuum hose, so I'm going to put that back on. Back there, and we took off, that popped off there, that sits like that. This breather that we popped off, I believe, careful, it ended up being on that side. Don't think it goes there, it goes on this side. So move that over, pop that on, pop that on. Alright, and now I'm going to go under here, and I have the two nuts to put on there and there. I have the reservoir to hook back up. I have that stupid drain back hose under there, which I need to push on. I'll definitely spray that with some soapy water. And this connection here, and I have the believe is the purge valve for the fuel tank system, goes on that little clip that hangs there. Then I have this piece here that just has a slider lock. If you remember, this harness is just held on by that slider piece. And I do have to put this piece back on too. I should do that too. I should do that next after I hook everything up. Over here, I will leave this part open and hopefully put that piece back in. Yep, okay. Alright, I have that slider locked. I just lifted this stuff up. Remember, my harness is still loose here, and you slide this piece in. There are like hooks down there. I'll see if I can light that up. And they sit on the ledge. Okay, you're not going to be able to hook that one up yet because we got to put that back piece in here. Just make sure all of this is clear, and your harness, make sure it's sitting in its location on the side, because we moved all this. And they all have their own little slots that they sit in. Like this one, for instance, it's pretty sure that one goes there. And then I took the little tubes off, these rubber pieces that were separate, that go for this, and I just have them down here. And I'm going to pop those on. I just didn't want them to fall off. So next step is, and just go over, I did put the dipstick tube, tighten that up, right? That's going to go here, but I want to make sure that I put all this in. This was all done under here, so I'm going to do this back piece. And that just slides in, remember, has the two Torxes. Okay, put this piece back here. Now, just to keep in mind, at your screw location behind there is a locator tab. So you got to make sure that you're in the locator tab, or else it won't go and sit flush. And make sure these stay in place. And locator tabs on both sides. Once it's there, you can go ahead and tighten these up. Alright, that's all tight. Now I have these little plastic guys that we took off, and they just push in. Now if they're loose, rotate them and they'll lock, like so. That's one there, and one goes here also. Oops. this piece here. Gotta make sure that that's sitting right. Right, going to put these rubber grommets on. Obviously the fatter one goes with the fatter hose. That's for your brake booster. And then the small one for this solenoid. Remember, we unplugged this solenoid over here and also unplug the brake sensor. So there's a clip that goes in. Plug in your sensor, plug in your solenoid. And we also took this piece off, which just slides into the channel like so. Alright, and the reason why that didn't want to go in is I had to seat this harness there a little bit better. Alright, and then I have this clip here that sits on the stud. That's for that harness. That's good, that's good. Alright, have this one. Might as well pop that on now too. That's my mass airflow sensor. I think I'm running out of things to put in. That's awesome. Alright, and I also topped off with CHF 11S, Pennison only. It says it right there. And I filled up my reservoir for the SMG. That's clipped on. I always like to go over everything, and it's like, alright, so I touched that, that's on. We touch this, that's clipped on. Right, this piece here, that brace, and back up, that's on. Right, my clamps are good. This has to sit in its housing. I already put the harness on back there. We put this piece on. This is sitting correctly here. Under here, we have the purge valve. That's on. That's my reservoir. That's clipped in. My harness is done. I put my 10mm on. This is on right. I checked my ATF fluid while I was here because that's where it is, buried under there. This we clipped on that metal tube down there with the drain back under here. It's hard to see, it's dark. That's clipped on. These are tight. And right, this had that slider piece right there. The harness that goes on this side, and then the slider piece just slides down. Alright, we touched this, so this is on, this is on. This goes through here, that goes there, and I gotta put my air box in now, and then cycle the key on for 20 seconds, cycle it off, cycle it on again for 20 seconds, I let it do a calibration twice, and then I should be good to go ahead and start it. Alright, this is funny because I said to watch out for this, right? Look, I popped this down, look, here's my gasket. Right, let's take this back off. I said to watch that in the beginning. So, when you're putting this weird piece on, put your gasket on first. Like so, and then finagle your boot on. Which I'm probably going to need two hands to fish it in there, but don't forget about that gasket, like I said. Good thing I noticed it. Alright, tighten your clamp. Put this one on. There is a gasket here too, so make sure that's seated right. Tighten that clamp, right? Put my air box. It slides into the clips right there, and it clamshells down. Lock it down. And then the mass airflow sensor. Plug that in. We do have the cross brace, and I have the back piece to put on, and this front piece, which is super basic stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and do my key cycles, hook up my battery, right? Have to do that. Do my key cycles and make sure everything's okay before I proceed. Alright, microfilter in the back, easy enough, crossbar. This is all together here, and we're done. That's how you replace the throttle actuator on the S54 engine. Hopefully you found this helpful and some good tips and tricks to get the job done. Thanks for watching.